You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Okay, thank you, Saisha, so much for being here on the Hello Well podcast. Hello Well with Danielle podcast. Why am I getting my own podcast name wrong?
Thank you for having me.
I am excited about this. I feel like I say this often, but like seriously, y'all don't understand. Like yoga has literally changed my life. And I'm going to go into my story a little bit later, but I kind of want to have you kind of start off with your journey through yoga.
Oh, sure. So I started yoga in taking classes in the gym, and pretty much because my best friend, she had such a transformational journey doing yoga, and like I could see it in her personality, and I can see everything there because she's, we're New York girls, a little tough. So for her to like mellow out, because I was always the chill one, for her to mellow out a bit, I was like, oh, okay, something's happening over there.
Yeah.
And then she ended up getting certified. So when you go through the certification process, you have to teach a certain amount. So she was like, all right, Saisha, well, come on, I'm teaching you. So practicing with her, seeing her growth, starting practice in the gym, like taking just gym classes and getting to see a bunch of different kinds of teachers and just yoga instructors in general, speaking with these people. And everyone that was into this seemed so great.
Yeah.
So I applied for this program where you get certified where school teachers can get certified to teach yoga.
Ooh.
So that we can include mindfulness practices into the classroom and use those kind of strategies for our students. And so I teach special ed high school math.
Okay.
Which any of those pieces is stressful.
Yeah.
Altogether, it's my life. So I trying to use those practices and use those things with my students. I feel like maybe not 100% of every kid is like now a total yogi in their head, but I will say that I've gotten great feedback. I've gotten good growth. I've seen the changes in my students over time.
Yeah. And I love that you started this thick thigh yoga, but I'm going to hold off on that conversation because that's a huge part of what I want to talk about. So for me, I'll be the first one to admit, and I just want to throw this out here right now. I fucking hated yoga. Like literally hated yoga when I first tried it. Like I live in San Francisco. Everyone and their mother is wearing yoga pants. I'm like, girl, put on some real clothes. I'm like, it's literally like the San Francisco uniform. But like I have friends who were teaching it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to support. I'm going to try this. And like literally I would do this thing where I'd see everyone else with their heads between their legs and I would try to do that. And then lo and behold, I've pulled a muscle. And I'm like, crap, like I can't, like I was too type A to do it. And then I remember when I tried a different type of yoga, okay, I'm going to try a different teacher, someone I don't know, so I don't feel so guilty about it. Like I had injuries and I try to tell him like, look, because my friend told me, make sure you tell them you have injuries. He's like, oh, you're just not trying hard enough. I'm like, seriously, yo? Like, yeah, no, I have one vertebrae that goes one way, one goes the other way. I pretty much know that if I do this, I'm about to be jacked. And like he literally was like degrading me over. And so I didn't do that class. But I found yoga in the most strangest way. So I went in this whole eat, pray, love situation last year. Yeah, I know. I didn't get the love. I got the eat. Nah. No, there's backtrack. I got the love of myself, but not the eat. And I did pray. I was in Bali.
Okay.
I went to Bali and I met with a Balinese healer. And he didn't speak any English. I kind of only, and this is so hella wrong, but I'm still gonna say this. So he kind of reminded me of Mr. Miyagi. It like looks in everything. And so it was this whole conversation where he was gonna do something, and like I knew it was yoga and meditation, and like little yoga, lots of meditation. We did the opposite, little meditation and a crap load of yoga. But that being said, after that session, I was like, oh, dude, why do I mentally feel so much better? And so then I don't know if you've ever been to Bali, but they have this yoga studio. It's like camp for adults for yoga. It's like freaking, it's like totally camp. Called Yoga Barn. And I went there and I did yoga a little bit further and I'm like, okay, let's see this going. And I did this Kundalini yoga class, and I'm just doing like a basic head roll. All of a sudden, Saisha, emotions kept coming out of me. I started bawling, like ugly cry, bawling. But I'm not the only one in the room crying, so I feel kind of okay. I'm like, okay. But like, I noticed that the more I did, the better I felt. But I was one of those people who had all those excuses. And I know people think yoga is this certain way. You need to be a certain size and all these different other things. Like, can you just let's just be real and let's debunk some of these like excuses why people feel like they can't do yoga.
Oh yeah. No, I would love to talk about that. Like you said, like that's my whole movement, right?
Yeah.
So um I I guess I should say like I started thick thigh yoga, which I've revamped a few times, but officially thick thigh yoga, because I knew that I wasn't represented when I was trying to do yoga. And so I was also, I admit, I am naturally flexible. And that's another excuse that people have. I'll come back to that. But being that I am naturally flexible and like I'm strong, I've always like I did gymnastics, I did dance class, all that stuff kind of growing up. So I
Yeah.
was physically active. I was just always this big. And like what makes me this big is genetics. I'm not like shoving burgers in my mouth every 3 seconds. Like, I had a doctor say that to me. Like she was like, yeah, so like when you're eating, like don't have the chips and don't have that. And I was like, you're a doctor. How dare you talk to me like that? Like,
Wow. Oh my gosh. She would
no,
have got
like
cussed out in the in your New Yorker too. Oh, she would have cussed out so quickly.
right. And I never saw that doctor again, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is my body. Like my body will hold the weight. These are my shoulders. My shoulders are broad. My hips are broad. My
Yes.
body, if I was skinnier, I'd look like a skeleton, you know? So it's just the way your body is built. Your body is capable regardless of how it's built. And so as I was seeing success and I was doing really well in my yoga classes, I was like, well, let me look up this pose or let me look up something, or maybe I do a flow online. And if I looked up examples, I did not see anybody that looked like me.
Right.
No one had any type of build to their body. And every 80-pound blonde woman is just not built like me.
I love
Um,
you for that comment.
and like, no offense to 80-pound blonde women. Do all the yoga, you know, that's fine. Pray to all the Hindu gods. Do what you gotta do. Um, but I didn't feel represented. I didn't feel like I saw myself in these people. And then, so I was just like, you know what? When I decided to do my yoga training, I was like, well, I don't see it. So let's create it. Like I'm a teacher, I'm used to that. So why not?
And we needed to create that. Like, I think sometimes people think yoga, like, oh, I'm not flexible enough. Or, the other one I've heard is, it's not a real workout. Like, what do you say when people say it's not a real workout?
Well, it depends on when they say it or where they say it. But like basically my answer is, well, come to my class, I'll bust your ass for you. That's really it. Or you just need to go to the right class. So I teach a Vinyasa Flow generally, unless
Okay.
I have like a target. And I'll talk about exactly
Yeah.
what
I
that is,
was
right?
like, say, I know what it is, but most people, trust me, I was like, then what? Back in the day.
So yeah, there's a bunch of different types of classes. And I will say that some people get turned off right in the beginning, because in the beginning of every yoga class that I've ever taken, regardless of the type, you stop, you connect to your breath, and that makes people uncomfortable because there's nothing to do in that moment. And so your thoughts are just racing.
Yeah.
And depending on who you are, of course, thoughts are just racing, and you're just like, I can't do this. This is too much.
Yeah.
And that happens. That happens. But then, like, so for a vinyasa flow, you flow with the breath. Every movement, every breath is a movement. You inhale, lift, exhale, fold. You're really like going with every movement goes with every breath. If you were doing like a yin class, if you needed to really sit in poses, release some muscles, a recovery kind of class, and sometimes you do that, sometimes you don't. That's not necessarily going to make you sweat.
Yeah.
Vinyasa, if you do it, is going to make you sweat. And then there's all these different types. So that's one suggestion. Look into the types of yoga. Look into what is offered. And again, I think the gym does promote yoga as just like a physical workout versus like the mental stuff that goes in
Mm-hmm.
there, which detracts from it a little bit. But as an introduction to it, I think it's fine. especially because so many people do actually adventure more into it. Like you need a door. You just need a door to open.
Yeah. And like the
Um,
door I had was more into the what I call the power yoga. It's like, do all these poses, put your head, like stand on your head, hand up, woo woo. And I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And like you were saying earlier, I remember, and I still have to check myself. Like I'll get on the mat and like I'll see things. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. What happened for me was I had someone tell me it's like it's okay, you don't have to do, you'll learn in your own time, but I had to
mhm.
get past the comparing myself to everyone else.
Yes, comparison is indeed the thief of joy.
Yeah.
You cannot enjoy it if you're comparing yourself to this or to that. Even if you're doing better, you still can't enjoy it because you're like, I'm better than this person. And you, you really
I've
don't get
never
to say
done
like
that. Never.
say how good you're doing in this moment. You know, like you the only person maybe you compare yourself to is you're also yourself, maybe yesterday, maybe last week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so you talked about, the I call the V word. And that's the one thing about yoga that has been a little bit difficult to me for me is that there's all these words and they all sound similar. And I'm like, Vadakanasa, which I may know how to say it and I may be saying it wrong, even that said, but I have no clue what that is. But like, there's different types of yoga. So the form of yoga that I typically do is Juvanuti and Iyengar, and then I'll do a little bit of restorative, but those are the main types. But can you explain what vinyasa is in a couple of different, like how do you even find out what the different ones are, and how do you know which one's right for you?
Well, I would say honestly, as far as finding out which one is right for you, trying it.
Yeah.
Right. So what I would do, I think Yoga Journal is a great resource.
Is that a
I'm not
magazine?
connected with them. It's a magazine, and then the website, and
Okay.
the website again is a really great resource. When I'm looking stuff up, I tend to end up there. And then they have like a lot of different, like very straightforward rundowns, a lot of definitions, which if anything, I would say I'd rather honestly point you there than to go through all the different types that I've come up with, because I'm not going to get as great of a description.
Yeah.
As far as as far as the vinyasa flow, you're it's to me, it's like one of the I won't say best because I don't want to say better or
It's
best or whatever.
common. You'll find it more often.
It's highly common, and it's I feel like it's a very good transition, or like a very good base to for you to transition to other forms of yoga, because if you do a vinyasa flow, it's hard and you will sweat if you have a teacher that is really moving you with every breath.
Hmm.
From that, if you want a little more, you can honestly go to a real power class, an intentional power class. If you want a little less, then you go to a yin class, a restorative class, or something like that, and then and anywhere else, And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the center, but I
Yeah.
do feel like it is a good middle ground.
It definitely, I agree with you on that aspect. What would you deem as a power class?
Um, I would say advanced asanas would be included. So like advanced poses, like you said, maybe you're doing like arm balances, you're doing handstands or
Yeah.
crow, like the scary position,
I
you
look at
know?
some of the stuff, I'm like, you want me to do what?
Right. Right. And like and some of it is crazy. And then I will say anything is crazy until you do it.
Yeah.
So
I know I had a great teacher who I really loved, and I was traveling when I met him, but he told me that, you know, what he does is every time he goes to the mat is the no judgment zone. And I love that. And so for me, I'm talking to you, I realize I've been judging other people like, look, I'm doing better than her. I'm gonna work on that. But for myself, I'm not, when I literally put my foot on the mat, that's like, okay, we've hit this special portal where I don't judge myself. I'm compassionate with myself. I don't tell myself, oh, you can't do it. Cause like when I hear myself trying to say, oh, this downward dog or this pose, like your arms are getting tired, you can't do it. I'm like, no, you can. This is a test. This is a lesson. And I try to breathe through it and I try to be more mindful about it. But I really focus as the mat not being a place where I judge myself anymore.
And that's beautiful. And like that's really it, right? Like, so I guess, and that's another like big piece that we just spoke about before we started, really, just the whole mental idea,
Yeah.
right? Like the mental part of the yoga is accepting yourself, is being present with yourself, is knowing, I don't want to say your limitations, but knowing how far you can go today,
Yeah.
right? And acknowledging that. And so even you saying like, okay, I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna hold this down dog. Sometimes that's the move. Like, some, if you have the strength and it's just like, oh, you're just tired or what have you, then maybe that's the move. Maybe the move is coming down to dolphin or tabletop and continuing to flow and go with whatever, the instructor says. And it just depends on that day. Because if it hurts, it hurts.
Yeah.
Yoga does not hurt if you're doing it the way you
No,
should.
definitely.
Like, your spine, I'm concerned about that. If somebody's just like, oh, you're not trying hard enough, that's not somebody I want teaching me. And I'm trained,
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want you teaching any of my clients, because just like I say about my students, as soon as you walk into my room, you are my client. That's it. I care about you. I want you to do well. I want you to grow for yourself. And I don't want you to compare yourself to anybody else. I definitely don't want you to compare yourself to me. Because again, I'm trained. I'm certified.
Yeah, there's a
I
different ball game.
Right. You paid me to be here. If you were better than me, this would probably be weird. So that's it, right? You try your best, you do what you can, you don't judge yourself, you don't judge others.
And that's a great point kind of throwing out when you're talking about comparison, because I think yoga more so than many other forms of exercise. I think people compare themselves more so than other places. I don't know if I'm wrong, but that's what I kind of think. And you don't know what the person next to you, what kind of training they've had. They could be a teacher and you just don't know about it. And you're
Oh
comparing
yeah.
yourself to someone is certified in it. And you have no clue. You're like, well, she looks basic, but why is she doing all these things I can't do?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And I love how you talked about earlier, and we talked about it before we were recording. Um Yoga is more than asanas, which are poses. And it's a mind thing. Like, I don't do yoga for like being in shape. I probably should consider that more, but it literally for me helped me through a point where I was grieving. I had like 6 people die, and it helped me work through that, and it just helped me mindset wise. And I find that I almost feel guilty saying this. I feel like I'm a nicer person. Like, I'm nicer to people who I don't even like. I'm like, ooh, yoga has me more mindful, like, oh, the spirit in me likes the spirit in you, just go the other direction. We be cool. Namaste.
I like you from over there. We're good.
Namaste. But I find that I'm just more mindful. I'm nicer. But in general, I feel so much. It's like going to church for me. Can you talk more about the mindset aspect of it all? It's not just about the physical side of it.
Okay, um, so there's two parts to this. The one major part is, because the asanas, like you said, the names of all the stuff is so crazy, right? But all the names are based on the Hindu.
Sanskrits or no?
Why is Yeah? Well, it's in Sanskrit. Why is the word not coming to me?
The Bhagavad
Mythology.
Gita, whatever.
Mythology.
Okay, I'm like
The
something.
mythology. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Hindu mythology, that's really the base, right? So all the poses are, not all the poses, but many of the poses are based off of Hindu gods or things you'd see in their stories and things like that. Now, because of that, um, well, intertwined with that, because I don't really have a because, intertwined with that, that means there's a focus for every pose, right? So there's a reason. And so when we do like splits, everybody always asks me about splits, right? When we do splits, it's Hanumanasana.
Yeah.
Don't expect you to remember that, but because it's the god Hanuman, right?
Mhm.
Hanuman leaped across the ocean, and that's why his legs are spread, and he is reaching. He's trying to find his mother. Like, it's beautiful,
Oh,
right?
that's beautiful. I wish I knew that. I still don't try. I probably won't try to do it still, because when they say those words, certain words I know, I'm like, oh, I don't like that word. I don't remember what it is, but I don't like that word.
Well, but I mean, right. So there's this just one tiny piece of a story, because there's more about Hanuman. There's more about all of these poses, right? And again, because of that, or intertwined with that, there's a reason for everything. So if you're looking to extend yourself, if you're looking to spread, if you're looking to release, then that's part of what you would do, right? And then we
Okay.
also do hip openers as a release. And you were doing when you were doing your head rolls, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
releasing your chakras here, and this is why you cry. Like there's just
Ugly
so
cry.
much tied into it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a meaning, there's a purpose, there's a physical result, there's an emotional result, and all you did was one move.
Yeah.
And how many moves do you do during a 60-minute yoga class or
Hella.
90-minute yoga class?
Hella. Minus Shavasana, which I'm like, ooh, yeah, it's sleep time.
Don't minus Shavasana. Shavasana is death, it's dying, it's killing who you were before you started,
Oh.
and then you come back.
Oh, I did
Right?
not know that. Oh, that's even better. I just like Shavasana because I'm like, yes, B, you've made
Oh,
it.
which is really funny that you say that too, because you are so connected to it, because like now you have a like a good meaning behind it, and it is meaningful for you. A lot of people hate Shavasana, just like the beginning of class, when you're like you have to be quiet and you're doing all that thinking. And even myself, Shavasana sometimes for me is hard because I'm like I was really in it and I was moving and I was flowing with my breath and all this stuff, and then you just stop, and it's like, oh crap, but I can't focus on where my toe is. What do you mean released
uh,
everything? Um,
I'm the
and that
opposite. I'm like, why are you getting me out of the Shavasana? I was chill. I was good. I was in a good spot.
right. And I mean, that just depends on your head, like what's going on in your head that day, even
Yeah.
like not just who you are, but what's happening in your life, what's
True.
happening in your head at that moment.
True.
So, like I said, don't discount Shavasana because that means something too. All of it means something.
That's beautiful. I did not know that that was what Shavasana meant. I'm like, I now look at it from a whole new perspective. And that's why I like Juvenuti. I don't know. Do you know about Juvenuti yoga? So it's
Mm.
based out in New York. They have like this, I
Okay.
think it's actually the largest yoga studio in the country. I mean, it's hella
Okay.
big, but it's where is it? I see this park that means nothing to you. I'm like, I know it. Union Square? Ever maybe it's somewhere in that area.
Okay.
I don't know. All I know is I see a drain weed, which means nothing again. I know, but it's I don't even know how to describe it, but there's a spiritual aspect to it, and so every month they have a new kind of theme for the month, and they talk about the theme throughout the class. And so I love that they bring in the different teachings, and I do learn about different things through that, and so it becomes more of a connection versus, you know, I like Iyengar classes, and I'm glad I started with Iyengar, even though my teacher was a true no, just in case someone listens to this, I'm gonna leave it at that. My teacher was wonderful, but she was special, 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 special.
Just wasn't the right teacher for you. That's
She
okay.
no, she was. I just when I first met her, I was like, is she throwing shade at me? Like literally, the first class, you again, they tell you this is after I've gone to Bali and I've gone to a studio near my house, and you tell them when you have injuries. I'm like, well, I can't. I At the time I was like, I'm not really good at doing downward dog, and so we're in the class I'm doing. It's like, oh well, even people who said they couldn't do downward dog are doing downward. I was like, did this bitch just literally shade me? And like I've had to literally tell other people who come into the class like they're angry because she throws shade. She's a German woman, beautiful. She's a really good teacher, but she's shady as all can be. And I don't even think she knows she's shady. And like you see people getting hella hot in a class. I was like, that's just how she is. It's no disrespect. Don't take it personal. She's really good at what she does. And she is really good at what she does because she would really push me to make sure that my arms were a certain way. And like, she's really particular about the small details of where you put every
Mm-hmm.
little part of your body down to your fingernails. I mean, it's stupid crazy how she's like really, but when I started taking other classes and started expanding in what I thought I can do, I was like, well, let's see if I can do this other class that might be harder. People are like, oh, you've been doing this for a while. I'm like, no, just a month or two. I've just been in this other chick's class who she's really hardcore about how we do everything. But now I'm more in line with things. And so I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Her, but that first class, just lucky I'm not the fighting type.
And you know what? I that makes me. I think I'll try to be more mindful of the things that I'm saying now. 'Cause I'm trying to figure out like how those things come across. Because so for school, we always do like positive based reinforcement.
Yeah,
So in my head, depending on the way it comes out, because of course half the time it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
exactly.
But if I see that for you, I would also definitely say like, and look, you know, you kept your down dog, like
No, that's not how
nice.
she said it. She's like,
And that's the
and
thing.
it looks like someone who says she didn't do downward dog is actually doing it. That's how she said it. I was like, that is shade, is a shade, is a shade.
I well, but that everybody has their own style, we
And
go
she
back to
does.
it.
And everyone has their own style. And I, again, will say, I am so grateful for her as a teacher because I got so much out of her and the studio I went to that I loved. Like, I've been able to find some really great studios, and I found studios where I'm like, I just don't connect. Like, and then I just try different things. Like, we've talked about so many different things, but we haven't really focused on the benefits. Are there any surprising benefits of doing yoga?
um I, if anything, I will say most people, like you said, don't think that it is a real workout. So for me, the biggest benefit that I didn't necessarily expect, because you think, well, yoga's slow and yoga this and blah blah blah, was that I am so much stronger than I was when I started. Because if you really think about it, so much of it is basically a body weight exercise,
Yeah.
and how many planks and chaturangas and all that stuff, like lifting and lowering, like, whew, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not gonna say I'm the strongest person in the world, but like I know that, you know, there's muscles just wrapped up in fat. That's all. Um
Girl, you wrapped up in curvy deliciousness.
well, and that's the other thing too. Like, there's a lot of definition that has happened in my body and things like that that like I didn't necessarily like plan for, wasn't looking for, but it has been a benefit that I have received. And then, like you said, there's the mental of like getting into a better mindset, being able to accept yourself more. That emotional, if anything, I feel like it helps with the emotional stillness. And when I say stillness, I mean like stillness like water, right? Be like water, not like soda. Soda can get shaken up and then you pop. Water, you shake it up, it's still. You can find that calmness, you can find that release, you can find that place in your head, in your
Yeah.
heart, and you can say, okay, well, I'm going to take a nice deep breath and I'm going to let this go. And it could really put you in such a better place. Like, again, I've been in the classroom, like,
Woosah.
y'all are really trying me right now.
Yeah, you're lucky I got this meditation, this yoga in me.
Girl, whew.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who should be thankful and be paying for my yoga classes. I'm just to throw that out there right now. It's changed. Like, even I think between doing yoga and a couple different things, like, I changed my eating habits as well. But like, I was on blood pressure medication. I had really bad migraines and all these different things. And I've noticed, like, my doctor looks at me like I'm crazy. He's like, so I keep checking your blood pressure and it's normal. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just kind of changed my lifestyle, and yoga was a huge part of that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And if you look into the other parts of yoga, um, and like things like Ayurveda, which, understanding what's the foods and the things that you're putting into your body, just even the temperatures of the food you're putting into your body,
Yeah.
because some people just their body does not handle cold well. So you think you're doing good by eating salads and having like ice cold water, and no, you're shocking your system in a way that doesn't work for it. Just like the opposite, if you're a hot person and then you're taking in more heat, you might be just cooking yourself on the inside
Yeah,
basically,
I
and
would
it's like,
love to learn more about that. Like, I kind of know about that, and I've done like the quiz, like, which one are you? And I'm like, I guess I'm a mix of, forgot what it was, Pita or Pata something, and
there's
Kappa
I,
something. Girl, I
yeah,
don't know.
there I'm not a expert on that stuff either. I know I learned about it during my yoga training, and I've had some conversations with people, and I've like tried to set things up for myself. Again, that whole like body awareness.
Yeah.
Once you know how things are supposed to feel, it's easier to know when they're off.
Yeah. I think yoga
So
definitely has made me more in tune with my body. Definitely.
yes,
Now,
yes, that's the overall thing.
would you say, like, or let me phrase that. I know some people think that yoga can be considered like a cult. of some sort, but it is a way of life because it does change you. Like how, I mean, how would you describe, is yoga a way of life for you? I mean, has it changed how you live and what you and how you move? Are you in a cult? Blink
Um,
twice. I'm joking, but seriously.
no, totally not in any cults. If anything, I don't talk to people. So that can't be the case. No, I will definitely say it has changed my overall outlook on things, and it's changed my way of thinking. When you feel like, well, so you learn a lot about being connected to the universe and being connected to the shifts of the planets, and like just like you're talking about your teacher really teaching you full alignment, which is beautiful. You learn about the alignment of the stars, and
Yeah.
you learn about just all of that in the world, like how everything aligned to create you as you are. Um,
Ooh, I love that.
which isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Um, and that's true for all of us. And so that's awesome. So it is an overall mindset. My grandma, when I started into yoga, she said, "I don't know about that. They mess with your brain."
It's like the cult, the cult, the cult.
It's like, okay, Grimes, it's fine. I think I'll be okay. And in the summit that we did, I remember mentioning it then. I get messages sometimes from people who are hardcore Christian, and they're like, "Well, you're praising all these guys and you're worshiping. You won't get possessed by the devil." And
Lord,
um,
bless those folks.
so one, it's physical movement. Two, if we are praising anything, it is the not I wouldn't say praise it, but the Hindu mythology is stated as such, as mythology. So you learn from the stories, you learn the ideas, you learn how things play out, you learn how one person affects the other, one story affects the other. You learn how you have a place in the universe, and then you also learn how the universe is within you. So if you can have that much power just for yourself, the things that people feel as far as like not feeling worthy, not feeling like the imposter syndrome, the just like the downtrodden, like I'm not able to do anything. All
Yeah.
those things tend to slide off to the side. Will they come back ever? Probably. Will you experience things that will flare that up? Yeah, most likely. I do too. Um, but it's, your mindset, your whole practice, your whole just everything about how you carry yourself and how you see yourself really changes
Yeah.
once you get into this whole yogic mindset. You see your effects, you see your cause and effects outward and inward a lot clearer. Maybe not 100% clear, but clearer. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is the big change for everybody.
And you make a good point, and we made jokes about it earlier, but there are people who are, I shouldn't roll my eyes at that, but are Christian and other things like that, and they think that this is because there is a spiritual aspect to yoga, but that's only if you choose to make it a spiritual. You can make it just the regular exercise and get the same benefits behind being mindful and other things like that. There doesn't have to be a spiritual aspect towards it as well. And I also think some people think that yoga is, when you do yoga, okay, I'm fully well, and yoga is one part of wellness. It's not, oh, I've done yoga, so now I'm fully like I'm living hella well. It's not.
I am fully enlightened.
Yes, fully
I
enlightened.
float in my bed. I don't actually lie in the bed any longer. Just
I'm waiting for
magical
that
stuff.
floating. I'm not that level yet. I ain't
Yeah,
floating
no,
just
really,
yet.
don't know what to tell you about.
So that's hilarious. So what are some quick ways? Not quick ways. What are, if someone's new to yoga? What are the first things they should try, or what are things that they should consider when looking into trying yoga for the first time?
Um, I would say to start, um, if you've never done it before ever, try some YouTube videos. Try something that's free. Try a chair yoga session. Try stuff that's small, right? And then 15 minutes. Like a lot of people have told me, like, like I try, but the hour-long classes, like it's a lot, and it is a lot. If you have, especially if you're not like physically active in any way,
Yeah.
that's a lot. An hour is a long time, especially you got to hold yourself up a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot of movement up and down. It's a lot. Try 15 minutes. Try, just breathing, starting with the breathing, starting with a short video with yoga and meditation, as you mentioned, right? So you can kind of tie those things together. Um, Try it at the gym. If you have a gym membership, I mean, right now that's a little, but
I mean, there's
it's
online classes. I take classes with at what's it called, Heel House in Brooklyn. I love a black owned yoga studio in Brooklyn that I hella love their classes, and I'm like, this is cool because they all. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Sorry, go finish this, and then I'm going to ask you something else. I totally forgot about that.
That's okay. Because honestly, online classes was something that I was going to say too. Because now we're home at least most of the time, right? As much as possible, and so the what you mentioned of comparing yourself to the person next to you, the person on the mat next to you, and like the people around you and stuff like that. Or a lot of people tell me they feel like, oh, well, they're looking at me. One, nobody's looking at you because they're trying not to fall on their face. Um,
Facts.
But two, if you're doing it at home, everybody at home is looking at me on the big in the big square, and all of you are little tiny squares, and I gotta like run up and see what's going on. So if I have to run up and I'm intentionally looking, somebody else who's all the way backwards, they're not looking for you.
I ain't checking for you,
Um,
boo.
right. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just you have free reign. And if you want to turn your camera off because you don't feel comfortable, turn your camera off.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't help you as much, but turn your camera off. That's fine. It's that then it would be like similar to you doing a YouTube video. But now you've got me saying exactly what I would say, or whatever teacher you sign up
Yeah.
with, saying exactly what I would say so you can hear the words, you can see the alignment, you can watch me live. If you really wanted to ask a question, you could ask a question. But I don't have to watch you. Nobody has to watch you. And then ideally the people in your home with you, they just gotta deal with it.
They've seen you already, so it should be
Right.
okay. Do you have any recommendations for curvier women as well in terms of yoga if they're starting new or just in general?
Um I I think honestly, my suggestions for the most part are the same.
Okay.
But I would also recommend making sure that you have the clothes that fit you, that have the support for you, like because there's sometimes and this is with workout in general. Um, for a long time, there were no workout clothes or like very little workout clothes for anybody who's plus sized.
Hmm.
Um, so or like if you have a larger chest, like the sports bra situation, right? It's just like either there's nothing or it does nothing, like it has no support,
Okay.
right? Or you're in this suit of armor. Those like those were like the options, right? Like, oh well, let me put on my chainmail. Like that.
Yeah.
So now there's definitely more options. There's a wide availability of a lot of things. So I would say like make sure you have clothes that are comfortable. I'm also not saying you have to spend any money. That's another thing. You don't necessarily spend any money, but if you have the right stuff for your workouts,
Yeah, because
get
yoga
that.
clothes can be hella expensive. Oh my God. Like, I went, where was I? So I bought my first clothes in Bali. So I found this cute little spot. Girl designs her own stuff, and I love my clothes. But then when I went to this other yoga studio, I looked at the prices. And I'm like, you've lost your mind. But then I went back to America, and I'm like, you have really lost. I'm like, $100, $200 for a pair of leggings?
Yes.
I'm like, do I get a orgasm with the leggings every time I wear them? Because I'm really confused. Why am I spending this much money for some freaking leggings? I didn't
Right.
get it.
And again, I do, so that's a big pet peeve that I have with yoga too, with capitalism ruining yoga. And I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily ruined altogether, but it really is a huge problem.
It's a deterrent, also.
I don't have any $200 yoga pants.
I don't think well, none that I actually paid full price. So low key where I go for yoga clothes now, I'm at Ross and Marshalls looking at those sales bins. I'm like, okay, where can I find some overpriced yoga clothes for a much cheaper? So that's where I buy any yoga clothes now. But I'm
Yep.
not buying them at the full store at the full price because again, if unless I'm getting an orgasm or a man or something with this, I'm not seeing the value. And it don't
Make
look
it
that
make
cute.
sense. That's it.
I
Yeah.
will say yoga pants, I will be the first one to say, and I will admit my ways. I was mad judgy of everyone in San Francisco and all those girls out there on Union Street and everywhere else in yoga pants. I hella love yoga pants. Like, oh my God, once I really discovered, I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
this is really comfortable. I like now I understand why they spend all day in these clothes. But again, I try
Oh
not
yeah.
to look like everyone. So I was like, okay, you need to get out of these clothes. But I'm like, but I love my yoga pants.
Oh, maybe that's a hurdle I didn't have to cross in New York as much because in New York, people don't necessarily do that. I'm in yoga pants all the time,
Yeah.
uh, unless like teaching. Teaching, I wear professional clothing
Yeah.
as far as in school. Other than that, yep, yoga pants and a t-shirt or a tank top or
That's the
what have
uniform
you.
here. But what's interesting when I did yoga in New York, which I thought was interesting, I played myself. So I went to New York for my birthday last year, which was silly, but that's a whole other story. But I went to New York for my birthday, and all I wanted to do was yoga the entire time I was there. Like, literally got off the plane and jumped into a yoga class. And I thought that, like, here you have to bring your own mat. Most places you have to bring your own mat. And I was like, I know people in New York do yoga. Why is it like I'm the only one carrying a mat in this damn thing? And but I realized a lot of places they already have the mats for you. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on where you went. But yeah, we in general we would have a lot of stuff, the supplies and things like that, because it can be a lot to carry around as far as like a big mat if you're coming straight from work. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing, being available for people who do not have the supplies. And this is again why I do suggest like if you go to the gym, well, actually I can't even say that because things are changing now.
yeah,
But there's ways to sanitize. There's ways to make sure that you're all set, right? But having all the mats. If you go to a studio, they have mats, they have blocks, they have bolsters, they have all this stuff, so that you don't have to carry all these things around. You can
yeah.
just
Show
use
up.
the equipment that's there. Yeah, you can just show up, and that's all you have to do. Bring yourself.
Yeah, I love that. So the one last question I did want to ask you about because I didn't want to miss this when this one I kind of came to my mind. I was looking at your necklace. So I recently discovered, and I'm going to so jack it up because I want to say Kermit, but that ain't it. Kemet, something. There's like an
Hermetic.
African. Thank you. I knew if I halfway said it, you'd know what I was talking about. It's like an
Yeah.
Egyptian based yoga, which I love. Can you explain a little bit, at least more about that? Because I know I obviously can't because I can't even say it.
So to be honest, I'm coming to it very recently myself.
Okay.
But I have seen if you've looked at the like the hieroglyphs and like carvings on pyramids and stuff, certain poses and positions you see are poses that you would do in a regular yoga class now.
Yeah.
So I don't honestly have a lot of connection. I don't know the connection between yoga based in India and Kemetic yoga based in Africa, but I definitely want to learn more about it. Um, I've seen I've seen like a few, not a lot, a few articles, a few examples, some videos and things like that. And again, it's just like based on the an African origin. Um,
The hieroglyphics.
and
Yeah.
the yeah, and like so the best I could say is that I know that there was one specific picture that I saw from a pyramid wall carving
Hmm.
and or carving, painting, image, right? Um, and so you see, just it looks like a sun salutation, basically, like with all the poses and like you can see like how the pyramids were
Yeah.
sitting up, like we call Sphinx pose,
Yeah.
the Sphinx, like you sit flat and you lift the chest, and like that's how the
Things look. Yeah.
pyramids are, like the Sphinx. So it's just like, okay, this is cool. Like I want to know more about it myself. School year started and I couldn't do anything, but
Yeah.
I want to explore that more as well.
Yeah. There's definitely on my list of things to explore. I'm noticing there's a lot of African connection and a lot of different wellness modalities that we aren't always taught about. Like even I got trained as a Reiki 2 practitioner, and so but as a Reiki master, there's other types of Reiki that are African based that I'm now learning about. And I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about that. And then when I found out about the yoga thing, I was like, there's just so much that I think, yes, things come from many different places, but there's a lot based in the motherland that I think we aren't taught about and told about. And it's not, I think it just needs to be more well versed. But that's a whole other conversation.
And the only thing I would say about that is I would take the word think out of everything you just said because I am sure of
Yes,
it. I
yes.
know it. We know it. This is a real thing. We were intentionally not taught things about Africa, taught about the wealth, the beauty, the resources. We just, we
True.
were intentionally not taught that. We, including, and I include myself, or at least I include my ancestors, as the people were
Yeah.
also ripped. Like there's so much ripped from Africa that we don't talk about, that we don't know about, and we can't talk about it if we don't know about it,
Yep.
right? And if nobody's talking about it, there's no way for us to learn.
Yeah.
So
That's why
it's
I'm trying to
it's super.
prepare myself to learn more so I can tell people more and I can help, everyone listen to these podcasts learn more. Speaking of learning more, you are wearing this most adorable looking t-shirt that says thick thigh yoga and I am all over this. So, where can a girl cop that t-shirt?
So if you, well, I am in the process of making sure my whole website is set up, but
Okay.
it will be thickguyyoga.com. Especially depending on when this is when this
We'll
is going
figure
to be
this out.
released. Um, but until then, I mean, I have a link tree, or you can go to my Instagram. Like there's plenty of ways to see me
Okay.
and to find that connection. But if anything, it would be Linktree/Saisha right now.
Okay.
That would give you access to my classes, to the t-shirts, to my schedule, the sign up, anything else to deal with me, my other places you would find me, Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, all that. And the t-shirt link is there. Um, just because putting it all in one place that's the one thing that's I've used so far to put it all in one place, but I actively have paid someone so that my website will be what it needs to be,
Yeah.
so that that is more accessible and like more easily found.
Well, I love what you're doing with your Instagram and your Facebook pages. Like we were talking earlier. I'm looking at you doing yoga on the beach. I'm like, oh, she must live somewhere really nice, like maybe Florida or something. She's like, I'm in New York. I'm like, girl, like, huh? You're in New York and you're on the beach. I'm like, oh yeah, there are beaches in New York City and Queens. I do see there are beaches, but you inspire me to do yoga. You inspire me to be on a beach, and you are inspiration to so many people. So I'm grateful for you seeing that there was a gap in what we were seeing, and not we don't need to be 85-pound blonde to do yoga.
Right. Well, thank you. And I appreciate that. And you inspire me. You do so much. You talk to women all the time and empower. Like, I think that's beautiful.
Well, let's just keep on this power.
Yes.
I just feel like, you don't have to be a certain size, shape, age, whatever to do yoga. And there's so many benefits behind this. So I really appreciate you for doing this. And so every guest, I ask the same questions. I do like a little quick fire questions towards the end, nothing major. We're gonna start this. You ready?
I hope so.
What does living hella well mean to you?
Living in my truth, being very true to who I am, representing myself as who I am, um, at the best I can at all times, not denying any part of myself, whether I believe that that's a good part or a bad part. Or I shouldn't say a bad part, a part I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And acknowledging and being present with all that I am.
I felt that. That's good. I like that answer. Not saying it was a right or wrong answer, but I felt that felt really good. Um, Aisle or window?
Window, every time.
You were secure on that one. What is always in your carry-on bag, your travel bag?
Um, a bathing suit, little bit of makeup, maybe my laptop, depending on if I have to do work or teach a class.
Okay. And I often talk about creating a wellness revolution for women of color, helping women of color, knowing that it's okay to, carry the Superwoman cape, but we have the option of putting it down and putting our own oxygen mask on first. If you were going to give your younger self any advice on how to embody being a woman who puts on her own oxygen mask regularly, what advice would you give to yourself?
Whew. Okay. You're really not playing with these questions.
Nah.
Um, whew. Advice I would give to my younger self about taking care of myself.
Yeah, taking care of yourself.
Okay. Um, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Yeah.
I think, and I say that a lot during my yoga classes because, like you said, people will get into a position and they're like, "Oh, this hurts so bad." If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. Do what feels right. Do what feels good. Do what makes your body feel good.
I love it. If you guys like, just try yoga once. Actually, try it more than once because sometimes the first time ain't the right time. But try it more than once and it will change you. This conversation has changed me, and I just feel like I want to do a class right now. And I'm like looking at my mat on the side of it. I'm like, ooh, change my clothes. I'm like, I can make a class in like the next 30 minutes if I really try. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you again today for being here. Again, you guys make sure to support Thick Thigh Yoga, and I'll make sure to put all the links for her and the t-shirt and the classes in the show notes. And other than that, I will catch you guys next week. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Hello Well with Danielle podcast. See y'all later. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.